Welcome everyone to Melfuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 6, Episode 16. It is called Birthright Part 1. So, full spoilers for the episode as always. So, obviously it's part of a two-parter, and I usually say this at the end, but I'll just say this now, is that we get part 2 of this before the next Deep Space Nine episode, so next episode we do will also be part 2 of this. And then there's a couple of pairs going back and forth between the two shows for a little bit. But funnily enough, this is actually set on Deep Space Nine, this episode. At least partially. They're docked to Deep Space Nine. Picard's got like it feels too much to even call it a C plot. He's just kind of in the background, like doing Bajoran stuff.
He's just there.
Yeah, he's not one of the main fixtures of the episode. We have two main plots, one of which seems like... So it's kind of interesting, because I would say that the Worf stuff almost feels like it gets less time, but that's the two-part story. That's the one that's got the cliffhanger.
It is, and that's the one that feels like, even if it's got less time, it feels like it's got more weight to it.
Yeah, but it's got the second episode to go still, so that's why it theoretically it's kind of an interesting idea, actually. I think to do something that maybe could have been one episode, but because you're like making it the B plot over 2 episodes, maybe it'll be the A plot in the second episode.
That's what I was going to say. I think it might be more interesting if it's the B plot here to kind of set it up and set it in motion, and then it's the A plot next time. Yeah,
I could see that. And the second plot is Data and him having some big steps in his time as a living being and possibly unlocking new stages of his existence.
A little bit of help from Bashir.
Yeah, I was wondering if we see any characters from Deep Space Nine, and it turned out we got one extended kind of guest appearance from Bashir, who's on the ship trying to work out what this new device that came from the Gamma Quadrant does, and runs out of data, and they go off.
He's unauthorized there, just starts doing shit because, hey, why not? Your stuff's better than mine.
And then when he realizes it's Data, his eyes light up because he's heard of him, and he's like, "Oh, you're exciting, you!" And he starts asking him all sorts of weird questions. But
Data's quite happy because he's asking all these weird medical questions, as opposed to, all about his strength and things that people usually ask about.
Yeah. So yeah, for him, it's like a fresh set of questions. Yeah, it's like a fresh.
It's a novel approach on it.
Yeah. So how do you feel about this episode overall, then?
I quite enjoyed it for the most part. I really like what it's doing with Worf, and I'm very interested to see kind of where it goes with that. I think the Data stuff, well, obviously still not complete, is more complete. We get, because I think just by nature of getting more of it.
It felt like a complete plot for this episode to me.
Yeah, like there's still bits it can continue.
Yeah.
It definitely felt like it had a more rounded package. And I think it's definitely different to what we normally get. A little bit of visions and stuff, but I was kind of into it.
Well, I think my only complaint with the Data side of the plot is that it did kind of beat you over, or it kind of explained it a bit too much. And when I say explained it a bit too much, I mean, so Data gets zapped by this device, which sort of knocks him out effectively. And while he's knocked out, he has a vision, or one might call it a dream, which is what I immediately called it in my head. And then by the end of the episode, that's kind of like, okay, he's going to try and dream more. But
I mean, they do question as well. Like, immediately when he wakes up, they're like, "Oh, so you had a dream?" He's like, "No, I don't dream."
Yeah. But he has this vision of seeing Dr. Soon. So it's Brent Spiner playing like a human for a change. But he's at like a smithing table, and he's smithing, and like immediately I'm like, okay, this is about him building Data. That's what this clearly means. And then when Data sees like, or when Data like takes the inspiration to start painting what things that he saw, and he ends up painting some extra things that he actually didn't see, but for some reason he feels they're connected, and he paints a bird. I was like, oh, so it's the idea that Data's ready to fly free from his original programming or whatever. Like it felt pretty like clear cut what everything meant, I think, quite quickly. It's because the vision of the like, because at one point when he intentionally knocks himself back out again to get like an extra vision, and it plays again, we actually see Sun releasing the bird and flying away.
I think it's fair to say it was obvious to us as an audience, but also I'm okay with it not being obvious to Data.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it was just it's when Sun actually in the vision explains, it says, "You are the bird, Data," and I was like, I think we could have had Data realize that without it feeling like they're sort of talking down to us and like
Yeah, that's fair.
spelling it out. Like, that was my one kind of quibble with it. But I do like this idea though that like Soon had this in here ready to go for when Data achieves like this new level of consciousness where he's beyond just being, you know, beeps and boops, and he can actually think this way for himself. And I don't know how heavily it implied this, but I kind of took it in this way that at the end when he says, "Oh, Soon put this into my system, and maybe I have unlocked it too early because of this machine that's triggered it." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to shut down every day now for a few hours and see if I get any more." And it's like, "Oh, like dreaming." A part of me thought, well, is it possible that you could already have been doing this and you just didn't know that you would dream, and that maybe you have unlocked this?
Maybe. I guess it's possible.
Because I thought it maybe hurt the special feeling of him, like, you know, achieving this new level of consciousness that he is now dreaming in some level. I was a little bit, I felt a little bit let down with this idea that, oh, he's not actually there yet. It just got triggered by accident.
No, see, here's the thing. I'm not opposed to that because I think that fits in with Data's constant striving.
Yeah, I suppose.
And the idea that, you know, as with being human, shit happens, right? You know, accidents happen, things come when you don't expect them. This happened because of an accident the Data couldn't have predicted. And maybe he wasn't ready. Maybe he's still not. But the fact is, now it's there. He's got to try and make the most of it anyway. That's kind of goes along with Data's striving to be human.
Yeah, I suppose thematically it works. It felt a bit listed because I thought, like, when he was actually going through this, and I was like, oh, he's actually achieved something new, and this is like him evolving a little bit, you know, without changing him that much. Like, it's not like he's going to not be Data anymore just because he's having dreams, but it would be like this new, like, you know, milestone and a path to just being life. And yeah. I thought that was like an interesting revelation, if a little on the nose with some of the imagery, which was, you know, pretty clear. You know, Geordie's looking at the paintings going, oh, blacksmiths used to, you know, use this to build things. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what.
Like building a machine.
Yeah.
And it was your creator who you saw building something. I wonder what he was building.
Who can possibly say?
Yeah. So yeah, a little on the nose with the imagery, but generally speaking, I kind of like the idea of what it was doing. I did two scenes of it I did quite like, where him going to Worf, which obviously tied into Worf's like plot because he was, you know, thinking about his father, but he goes to Worf for advice because Worf's had a vision before as part of his Klingon upbringing that he's done this. And get some advice from Worf. I kind of liked him going to Worf for a personal advice because, you know, I don't feel like most of the characters go to Worf for personal advice. They tend to go to him for security advice, for fighting advice, not for, you know, this.
I actually really like this scene as well because Worf's like, oh, vision, important. And he just kind of goes off on one.
Yeah, well, clearly, I mean, it makes it clear that in Klingon culture that if you have a vision, it's, you know,
it is, and he makes it obviously very personal for himself about his own crisis that he's going through.
Yeah. And that leads him to making his decisions in his own plot. But the other thing I really liked is when Data comes to Picard, and he's talking about this is before he has the dream again, it's before he even does the paintings, and he says that he's just looking through like basically hundreds of cultures, human and alien, to try and see if there's an interpretation that will make sense. And Picard's like, well, why do you think the answer will be in someone else's culture? He's like, well, I don't have one. Like, yeah, but okay, your own culture then. Just because you're only one person doesn't mean that it's any less valid than a culture of millions. So maybe just try and figure out what it means to you. That's what's important. It's not what about it means to anyone else, but what does the imagery mean to you? And an episode with almost no Picard, he still had like a nice little speech here in the middle that I thought was quite poignant.
Yeah, he's contractually obliged to have one every episode.
Yes. So yeah, I like that little scene. So yeah, I mean, Data's plot I think was generally nice. Obviously, Bashir interacting with them was nice. Obviously,
I actually really weirdly felt like I got a good chunk of Bashir's character here more than I have in most Deep Space Nine episodes.
They've got plenty of time to do that.
No, they have, but it was just like weird getting it here when I'm like, I'm still waiting for this solid characterization and development on that show.
It's still somewhat valid though, because it's like, you know, most people watching Deep Space Nine are probably already watching Next Generation.
They probably are, yeah.
What I will say is, you know, it probably wasn't needed. It was just kind of a fun guest appearance. This could have been like any random character, really. But like you say, we got some nice interactions with him and the others. The downside is though is that it showed me what Bashir looks like in HD, and now I have to go back to Bashir not in HD. I was like, damn, Bashir, your costume looks so sharp.
Yeah. Damn you, soft blurry edges.
I know. It was just cruel. It's even seen the promenade because like Geordie and Worf were there at the start of the episode. I said, oh, like,
yeah. Brian still hasn't got the food replicator sword apparently.
Worf seemed to like it.
Worf will eat anything.
He's like, delicious.
Geordie's like, this is swill.
Is it? The more synthetic, the better.
Yeah.
But of course, the plot with Worf is that this alien dude shows up, played by James Cromwell. I recognize his voice instantly.
Good for you.
But did you not recognize him?
Not immediately, no.
Obviously, you can't see it because he's got so much makeup on. He doesn't look like him at all. But I did recognize his voice. Notably, he plays at least one more character in Star Trek. When we eventually get to First Contact, the movie, you'll see him in there.
While away yet, but cool.
Yeah. You say that, it's not that far away. In the grand scheme of things, it's not that far away.
I suppose not.
It's only the second next gen movie. We'll probably be doing that like between seasons like 3 and 4 Deep Space Nine or something like that. So it's a little while away, but it's not.
It's a bit, yeah. It's a few years away.
Yeah. But anyway, so he basically says to Worf that his father's alive, and he's like, no, my father died in Kittamir. What are you talking about? And he's like, he gets really upset about it because the idea that his father didn't die in combat is really dishonorable, and he tries to ignore this, but it's clearly getting to him. He accidentally punches his table, which Troy comes in and does some on the spot therapy to try and help him. And
then Data's like, visions about fathers. Oh, those are important.
And he's like, it's important. If there's any truth about your father, you have to find out. You have to seek it out. You have to get to it. And he's like,
find him.
He's like, shit. I need to go and pursue this. So he goes back to the alien, who's just a scummy guy who wants to like extort him for money. But he says that his father's in like a Romulan prison camp on some planet, and gives him, takes him there in a shuttle. And Worf goes down. He's all in black gear, so he's like,
he's broken out the tactical turtleneck.
Yeah, he's in stealth mode. He's sneaking through the jungle and the bushes and all that. But obviously, what he finds as this progresses, kind of turns out not to be exactly what he was expecting. There is eventually Romulans at the very end,
and there are Klingons.
But he finds a Klingon who's just like out, like having a skinny dip bath at the middle of the night, and he sort of says, "I'm here to rescue everyone, but don't tell him you've seen me." And he sort of like goes back out of the shadows, and clearly this Klingon woman's like, "Huh? I live here.
Rescue us from what?"
And then he grabs one of the older Klingons and explains who his father is. And it turns out that his father, seemingly, at least from this guy's word, did die in Kittamir and did die with honor. And Worf immediately is like, "Oh, but you all were denied that honor. So damn it, I will help you. I will help rescue you." And immediately they're like, "No, we can't let you do that. You're not leaving." And that's kind of the cliffhanger of the episode. Some Romulan like guards come out, but it doesn't.
Cult of elders.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they're here against their will is the thing. Or at the very least, it feels like they're willing to stay here. And
it definitely feels that way, yeah. But how much of that? It could reveal to us that there's some weird like brainwashing been going on.
Yeah,
perhaps. Like,
could be that, or I mean, my first thought was that they made some sort of deal and like Worf's going to see them as cowards when he finds out why they've chosen to live like this in secret.
Yeah, maybe this is part of just protecting their honor because Worf mentions that it won't be just him that has the shame of
okay.
It would also be his son as well. So it might be that all of these Klingons here are kind of protecting their family honor by like, hey, if everyone just thinks we're dead, we'll stay here, live out the rest of our lives in peace.
Yeah,
we'll take that personally honor, but no one else has to know.
I mean, they seem to have younger Klingons here as well, but then I guess the ones that are here just have to stay here because otherwise they would dishonor, or be dishonored if they left. Yeah, so yeah, maybe it's going to challenge Worf's ideas a little bit and how these people are living. But obviously, the cliffhanger is that he's not allowed to leave, which obviously can't stick. But that's at least what we're going to pick up next episode.
Yeah,
it's hard to really kind of properly analyze it yet because we don't know what the ultimate dramatic point is going to be.
Kind of really still in the setup phase.
Yeah. which was, it was funny because we were meant to record a week ago and we had to push it, and I put the episode back on because it had been long enough. I was like, I need to watch it again because I'm not going to remember the details. And I'm watching the plot, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is coming back to me now. Like he finds out about his dad, and he goes to this planet. And I was actually shocked on the second viewing how much little screen time it actually was in terms of like his plot.
Yeah,
I don't think
it feels quite weighty in when you just think about the episode.
Yeah, I don't think I realized in the first viewing how much more of the screen time was actually spent on the data plot, which felt like the B plot, but it kind of wasn't in terms of allocation.
Yeah, I agree.
So. Yeah, kind of interesting.
Which is why I think it's probably going to be the A plot next time. Is the Worf stuff because we've done all the setup stuff now. We can kind of just really dig into the rest of it next time.
I wonder if the rest of the characters get involved, or if this is one of these things where Worf is going to ultimately do all this plot himself and deal with it himself. Is that part of the dramatic point that's going to be made? Is that this is?
Yeah. Again, it's too early in the story to call right now because. Depending on some of the choices they want to make and what the story is going to be, you could go either route right now and kind of make very different dramatic points.
Yeah. And if they don't get involved, then that means at least we're going to have a B plot, I assume, with them doing something. Maybe still back in Deep Space Nine.
Maybe we get another character from Deep Space Nine. Instead of Bashir, we get someone else.
Maybe O'Brien gets to make a sort of returning appearance. Yeah, I like the episode. It didn't blow me away. Like I think I like what it's doing in both plots. I like the sort of things that it's kind of poking at with Data. I like potentially what it's doing with Worf. But that's just a part one. So I think ultimately I thought it was a good episode, but not one that like left me kind of like, oh god, that was like a great TNG episode.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm very aware that it was a part one, right?
Yeah.
So kind of like. Judgment is reserved, especially like with this Worf stuff. It has a lot of potential. I'm really interested in it, as I have been in most of the Worf stuff over the course of the show. To be honest, it's kind of been pretty solid, for the most part. But we'll have to wait and see, kind of really what it does with it.
I think part of it's because he's got a very different culture to all the other characters. So it's every time they flesh it out a bit more, it's kind of interesting to see what they do with it and. Maybe see where some of the allegories might be landing with the plots. There's definitely.
I think it's kind of interesting that they've done that with Worf and Data in the same episode in this case, because usually both of those are, hey, these are the outsider characters, right? Let's explore their culture and what makes them different in specific ways. And so usually you get one or the other alongside someone else. I would probably
propose here that thematically, in the same way that Data is reaching a new kind of awakening for himself, that Worf might be doing the same thing over the course of the two episodes, where the way he views honor via like his heritage and how Klingons view it, maybe he'll have a slightly different opinion on it and be a bit more free from just the standard Klingon programming, as it were, because of whatever he learns about these characters and the choices they made. And hiding here, so that might be a very intentional kind of comparison they want to draw, which might be a reason why maybe there is a little bit more to this Data story next episode if they do like maybe show him trying to have more dreams and maybe what those dreams could be.
Yeah, which will say like there is stuff for them to do there. They can progress that. They might not. There might be a completely different plot alongside next time. But I don't know. I do like I like everything it does. But there's not enough of the Worf stuff to really, feel this is a great episode. But it might be a great two-parter.
Yeah, it's hard to judge this right now, being an incomplete story, and it's especially hard to judge the Worf plot until we know kind of what points it's making. But I liked him going out to seek this out, and with the potential of what could be there.
I liked him having that kind of personal crisis of whether he should go or not, whether he should just ignore it, whether it's all nothing, but maybe there's a chance, and kind of that revelation that he kind of has to follow up on this. I like all that stuff they did.
Yeah, that's more parallels you can draw with Data, where Data is actively investigating, this throughout the episode, and Worf is also, it's more physical, his search, because he's actually going out and looking, but, effectively they're both searching for the answer to the mystery they've been handed. And... yeah, so there is some decent writing at play here in the episodes for sure. So we'll see what part 2 brings next time. which is next time. So I won't read the description because it's just part 2 of this one. But we will talk about that soon. So let us know what you thought of this Star Trek Next Generation in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. You can get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. And of course, you can support all the content by hitting the super thanks button below the video, or go over to patreon.com and supporting us on a monthly basis and getting some bonuses, including early access to the Trek reviews. So if you want to do that, please go and have a look. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, and somewhere out there, Wesley Crusher is having his own visions of being set free as a bird.